And I told him, please stop, let me get out. And he wouldn't let me get out. And I think to myself, am I getting kidnapped? Hello there and welcome back to the channel. I'm Jay and today I'm going to take you on a story. The first story that I'm going to talk about in the storytelling playlist is where it all began, Puerto Rico. The story started with a girl. Well, as most of my stories start, I guess. It started with a girl I thought I loved. We dated in high school when I was in the US and she left abruptly. We dated when we were 16 years old and since then I just couldn't forget about her. So there was one day I sent her a message saying I think I really like you. And she said, oh yeah, come over to Puerto Rico. So I said, yeah, sure. And at the time I was working in the film industry and I hadn't really lived and I wanted an adventure. So I decided, fuck it, let's just do it. So I took time off, told my boss I'm going to take time off, and I booked a flight to Puerto Rico. To put this story into context, her parents told me that I should stay with them for 1 week. Originally I was going to stay there for a few days because my parents live in the US and I was going to go see them for the most of the time. Because at the time I live in the UK. And her parents were like, no, stay for a week. So I was like, sure, why not? I'm excited, I'm off to Puerto Rico. And I get on the plane and I get a text message from the girl. And she says, Jay, I can't see you anymore. I was literally boarding the plane and she said, I can't see you. And I remember I was sat on the plane and I was like looking at my phone and what do? Do I get off the plane? Do I go? Do I get off? Do I go? Do I get off? Do I go? And I decided, fuck it, I'm gonna go to Puerto Rico even if she doesn't want to see me. Booked like a hostel on my phone in San Juan and I flew to Puerto Rico. I get to Puerto Rico and it's my first time. I'm 18 years old and it's my first time traveling to another country alone, completely alone. I get to the taxi driver and I give him my address and he's like and he basically starts driving off. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, why is he so angry? And he's like this old man and he's talking, he's like, looks at behind, gets on the phone, he's like, cabron, gringo, cabron. And I already know that cabron means bitch in Spanish. I know gringo means like white man. And I think to myself, am I getting kidnapped? And I ask him, where are you going? Because he doesn't really know where I'm going. I just gave him my address and he kind of didn't listen to me. He just drove off. And I told him, please stop, let me get out. And he wouldn't let me get out. And he's driving on the taxi lane. So you've got, in an airport, you've always got the taxi lane and you've got the highway. So here's us, we're driving on the taxi lane before we hit the highway. And I remember I was in the taxi and I'm thinking, is this how taxi drivers are in Puerto Rico? But then when I kept hearing him on the phone, as if he was like gringo, I literally kind of translated without understanding anything that he's got a white guy in his car and I think he was off to sell me. So I start panicking and then I kind of have this memory of watching James Bond when he's always jumping out of the cars, and I think to myself, you know, if James Bond can jump out of a car while it's moving, why can't I? I've not got anything in the trunk of the car. I've only got a backpack, you know, so I've not got a suitcase. So first off, I kind of try the door to see if it's unlocked. And he's not a very good kidnapper because literally he never locked his door. So I go 1, 2, 3. I pull the door open. I get ready to roll out of his car while it's moving. When I open the door, he slams his brake, smashes his head on the steering wheel. He's kind of dazed. So while he's dazed, I quickly run out of his car and I start running back to the airport where the taxi caller is. And as I'm running back, he turns his car around and tries to run me over. And he misses me. And I'm panicking like he's literally trying to run me over. And then he misses me and then I keep on running and he backs towards me and then he stops in front of me, opens his door and pounces on my leg. And then he trips me up and like he crawls on top of me and spits in my face and starts like going in something I don't understand what he's saying. But luckily I'm like 18 years old and he's in his 70s and I wrestle him off me. And then I run back all the way to the airport. I tell the taxi caller, hey, this guy's trying to kidnap me. And the taxi caller's like, no problem. No one's trying to kidnap you. No. And he doesn't believe me. And I'm telling him this guy's trying to kidnap me. All of a sudden, the taxi driver pulls over at the airport taxi lane, gets out, and just starts beating the shit out of the taxi caller, trying to get to me. And like this big row goes up, and I'm like, what is going on? And then everyone's calling the police. And then they're rowing for like 5-10 minutes. And then the police turn up. The old man hobbles away. I've never seen an older man run this fast. He sprints to his taxi and just drives off. And the police are kind of looking at the guy and they're like, what's going on? And basically they interviewed me to see what happened. And eventually they put me in another taxi. And then it just keeps going. Like, the next taxi driver says, where you going? I give him my address. And apparently I booked my hotel or hostel for San Juan, Argentina, not San Juan, Puerto Rico. I don't know, I just put San Juan. And then the guy's like, well, I can take you to where the hotels are called Condado. And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do that. So he drives me to the Condado, drops me off, and he says, whatever you do, don't go to La Perla. And I'm thinking to myself, sure, why not? I just kind of ignore that. And I go to Condado, I go to all the fancy hotels, because at the time I had quite a bit of money. I was working in the film industry. And I go to the hotels and I'm like, hey, can I book a place to stay? And these hotels are massive. Like, there's no way that these can be booked out. But they just kept telling me, no, we've got no room. And at the time I looked like a mess. Like, my hair was all over the place. Like, you know, I was kind of scuffled up because of the guy spitting on me and dragging me on the floor. And no one accepts me, so I walk all the way from Condado to Old San Juan, and I get to a hostel, and I'm so hot, and I say to the girl at the hostel, hey, can I book a room? And she says, no. And I think to myself, what is wrong with this place? Like, why can't I get a room? So then I start panicking, like, I don't have nowhere to sleep, and I'm texting this girl and her parents, like, please help me, I've just been kidnapped. And they just completely ignore me, they don't answer. And then I found, like, this big castle. And underneath it, there's like this shantytown kind of place. And I start walking down the shantytown. It gets a bit sketchy, and these three guys with guns walk up to me, and they're like, cabron, gringo. Basically, they think I'm American. And it just all gets complicated. And I'm just so tired at the moment. And I'm just like, please, you know, I'm just so tired. And then I start speaking, and they realise that I have an English accent. And they're like, no Americano, like, you're not American. And I'm like, no. And they go, oh, English? And I'm like, yeah. And I go, oh. The main guy tells the other two guys to put their guns away. And they start talking to me. And then they're like, what's your name? And I tell him my name. And he goes, hang on. And then he goes on his phone and starts calling these people. And I don't know who he's calling. And I'm panicking, like, are they going to, like, sell me? Are they going to kidnap me? And then basically he comes back and he's like, oh yeah, my uncle has a boutique in Condado. Here's my name. Just tell him my name, tell him your name, and tell him I sent you, and you're going to have a room to stay for tonight. Welcome to Puerto Rico. And he was so nice, this gangster. And I kind of walked out of this favela and I stayed there for the night. And this was the turning point from when I started having these crazy life experiences. Like, after this experience, I had a situation when I was in a car, and the car went off the mountain cliff, and it was like hanging. And I was in there, and the people were drunk driving. It was just, I have all these crazy stories. So I kind of wanted to share you the very first story I have from my travels. And the thing with traveling, I got into writing because all these crazy stories started coming up. And I remember really specifically, I was in a bar one night, and I was alone. And I started talking to these people about my kidnap experience. And I literally, within 5 minutes, I had the whole bar crowding around me, like, listening to every word I was saying. And it was so bizarre, because this has never happened to me in my life. And I haven't really had any crazy experiences in my life apart from working with rednecks in central Florida. And this was the time where I was like, you know what, I need to start traveling, because this is when the travel bug really caught me. And I just actively went out to find more and more crazy adventures. In the 7 days I was in Puerto Rico, I had the equivalent of a whole half a book. And my first book that I released is mainly about Puerto Rico and how I found myself in the madness. So I'm going to make more videos, but this is the first storytelling video that I'm going to tell, and there'll be more coming up. But yeah, I hope you enjoy my crazy madness about when I got kidnapped in paradise. Anyways, have a wicked day. Thank you. Bye. To read my street writing, feel free to give me a follow on Instagram. Have a wicked day.